So we're starting from where we were. I'm going to rename what I've already done Keypresses. And we're going to start to put similar stuff with that little icon that we did with the automatic movement. So I'm going to go to design. I'm going to pull in an image. And I'm going to choose the image, and I'm going to get the same image as last time. So I'm going to go to icons, and I think it's a little bit of the ways down. And okay, so I'm going to pick something different because I can't find, oh, there it is, the exact one. I'm still going to set it to 50 and 50. I did before, and I'll just put it at a spot on the screen. So now I'm going to go back over to my code. I'm going to need the same variables I did last time for velocity and the actual position. Here, I'm going to set the velocity to 0 for X and Y because basically the cat is not going to move unless we press one of those buttons. So in the other one, it was moving no matter what in some sort of direction, but here, that's not going to be the same. So here's my position variables for X and Y and my velocity variables for X and Y. So now we're going to go down and we're going to start our timed loop. So I have my variables at the top. I have my event handlers for the key presses. And we're going to loop down here. And you're going to see some is going to be the same. You know, some of this is going to be the same. So we're still going to do the same type of time loop. Down here, we're going to do the 20 milliseconds again. So 50 times a second. And then we're going to start to build that. So even though I already have my velocity set to 0 at the top, I'm going to do that again because each time we're going to assume the button is not being pressed, so there is no velocity. So I'm going to get those blocks. So we're assuming it's not moving. We're going to get the position that it currently is at because it might have moved since the last time we went through the time loop. So xcat and ycat. I'm going to switch over to text and just add some enters here so this isn't so low and we can see it a little better. Okay. And I'm going to get the position for the X and the Y. So come on. For some reason, I might have to type some stuff in. I'm actually going to refresh my screen and just see if it's like an issue with it recognizing stuff and if this will work a little better once I refresh. Nope. Well, okay. So I'm going to type this in. So get X position and get Y position. And I did not name this, so I'm going to name this cat image as I had in the last app. So we've started our velocity with 0, okay, basically, and we have the position now. So now we're going to set up the velocity function, but we will start with it in the actual event handler. So we need another conditional statement. If you remember, our conditional statement last time was basically just making sure that the cat didn't go off the screen, so we bounced it in the opposite direction. Now we're going to be checking for some other things. So we're actually going to be checking for two things. We're going to start out with moving to the left. So basically, we're going to say if key left. So what that means is key left is a Boolean variable. has a Boolean value. So if the key left button is not being pressed, it will be false. And when it is being pressed, that will be true. So we're looking for it to be true for the left velocity to work. And then we're also going to say, and, you know what, let's just leave it there. We're just going to do if key left, the x velocity of the cat, let's get that, is going to be, and we're going to try 5 here. And actually -5, right, because we want to go back for left, okay? And then we're going to say else if key right is true. We don't have to say key right is equal to everything. Key right is true or false, so we don't have to give it some sort of equal sign or extra information there. Then the x velocity of the cat is going to be +5. And then I'm going to go over to copy. I'm going to get rid of my else. And I'm going to do my other 2 directions. So if it's key up, remember up is actually negative. And I missed x here, so let's fix that. This one should be y velocity. And then else if key down, down is positive, a little different than what we would think of in math. So that's positive. The y velocity is positive. Now my last thing that I'm going to do is once we pick the velocity, we have to make that statement about actually moving it based on the velocity. So we're going to get a set position block. And this is the one that it doesn't like me to move, so we'll have to type it in. Hopefully you are functioning properly. So set position. And this is of the cat image. And let's see if I can switch over now. Probably we'll have to switch back to get some commas though. So basically we can see what we're building. And if I look at that structure, I need the x and the y. We're not going to do width and height, so we can leave those empty. So I'm going to do x cat where it is plus its x cat velocity cat, and then y cat plus y velocity cat. So now we're going to run it. And at this point, the one thing you have to do, we'll probably have some things to fix. Line 1. Okay, so I made a silly mistake, and all of these should be lowercase. And the nice thing you can see is as we do this, it is switching everything over to blue, showing me that it actually recognizes it as something. So in Python, we use capitals, but in JavaScript, we use lowercase for our Booleans. Another mistake I'd say I wrote falser. So click on the screen. So I'm clicking my mouse on the screen. And then if we press the arrows, if everything goes well, we should see the cat moving. So you can't see me doing this, but I'm pressing the arrows. Now our issue is that we can move off the screen. So basically we don't actually want to, we don't want to bounce it, but we want it to stop there, okay? So what we need to do for that is we just need to add to our conditional statement down here. So when I'm going left, okay, so let's just get it over this way. So when I'm going left, I want to keep going left, but if I get to a certain x value for the cat, I don't want to let it go left. So we're going to say when I'm going left, and let's just start out with this, and the x cat is greater than 0. We'll just try that to start out. Then we're going to let it go left. So I'm going to run that. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I want to make it as close as possible to actually hitting the side. So I already played around with this, just so in the video, if you're watching this, you don't have to worry about it. I found that if I move it over to -10, that looks correct. And that's just because there's some white space on the side of the picture. So we're going to set up each of these. I'm just going to run it to show. Okay, so now it kind of like touches the side, which is more what I want. So on key right, we want to make sure that the XCAT doesn't get too big, and I found that 280 works well. Key up, we want to make sure that the Y value doesn't get too small. So we want to keep it greater than, and then -10 will work again. And in the downwards direction, we want to make sure that it stays less than 410. So you would have to play around with these if you're making something yourself. But now if I do this, okay, I see that it can't go off the screen. Now, the last thing we're going to do in this video is I am going to make a function out of this. I'm going to make it a function actually with parameters, just to practice for AP, but also to see different ways that you can control this a little better. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put my function above my event handlers as I usually do. I'll do some stuff in blocks for now just so that we can move stuff and make sure we move everything correctly. So I'm going to get a function, and I'm just going to call this velocity again. And for now, I'm not going to worry about the parameters until I take that code and pull it up. So I'm going to take the entire conditional statement and just put it in the function. Now, the things I want to use, let's say I have this velocity and I want it to work for different sprites on the screen. So I'm going to name this X sprite and Y sprite. And then I also might want to do different velocities. Now I already called the velocity function velocity, so I'm going to use VEL. So instead of having this only work for the cat, I'm going to have it work for any sprite. And I'm going to use X sprite here and Y sprite because those have different values. Instead of having this just do 5 or -5, I'm going to have this do negative velocity or positive velocity based on the signs of those values. I could have further parameters if I wanted X and Y velocities to be different. I could have the X velocity and the Y velocity and then control so it's not a direct diagonal line. I could make it move more up or down if I wanted to, just as a side note. So now when I call my function, I specifically want this to work for the cat now. Hello. So I'm going to call this velocity, and I'm going to have this work for X cat, Y cat. So I'm passing X cat and Y cat in for X sprite and Y sprite, and then I want to do this for 5. So we're going to run it and just see if it still works. I'm going to go back up to the function and talk about that a little more. So I'm passing in X cat into all these spots, Y cat into all these spots, and then velocity into these velocities. And I want you to see this, like if you're, if this will help with math. This has 3 parameters, but when we do f of x in math, and then we say f of 3, we plug the 3 in for all the x's. It's the same idea here, if you haven't seen that yet, that we can plug values in that go into all the spots in the function where that variable is named. So I see that it still works in the same way, and if I had other things on here, I could get them to work. I could change the velocity, like let's say I want to make my cat, I'm like, I don't like that value, I don't have to change it everywhere. Maybe I can move it with 10. And then I run it, and he's moving faster. Now that's faster than changing it in all of those spots. So having this velocity value, maybe I want him slow. So depending on what I'm doing with this, I can pick different velocities. I'm going to change it back to 5. Okay, and then we're back to where we started.